Starting a Turo fleet can be daunting and confusing. Which car is the best ones to buy? Which ones are most reliable? Which ones will give you the best ROI? And to be honest, these are all questions that I get asked on a daily basis. And whenever it comes to answering them, there are just so many different factors that come into play. But in the spirit of 2023 quickly approaching and many people mulling over the idea of starting or scaling up their Turo fleet, in this video, I want to talk about what my favorite Turo cars are to buy, all of which can be purchased for under $10,000. So if you're somebody who's a budget buyer looking for a low-end or mid-tier economy car that you can purchase for cash and list that car out on Turo, then this is going to be the perfect video for you. Keep in mind that the cars that I'm going to be recommending in this video are cars that I have found can be very successful, and that's based off of my specific business model, which is the low-end and mid-tier economy car business model. Of course, there are many different ways to be successful at Turo. This is the way in which I have found a lot of success, and I want to share the specific cars that I find to be best. Again, all of which can be purchased for under $10,000, but most of which can be purchased for around $6,000. So let's get started. First and foremost is Toyota. Y'all know that I absolutely love Toyotas. I have a number of different Toyotas in my fleet. I have a love affair with Toyota Yaris's specifically, and I personally drive a Toyota 4Runner. I think that Toyotas are one of the best brands and best cars out there, regardless of which model you choose. The one big downside associated with Toyotas is the cost. Toyotas are very expensive, which of course for Toyota owners, that's a great thing because it means that they retain their value extremely well. But if you're wanting to buy a budget car and you're looking for a Toyota, it can be very hard to find good ones for a good price. I like to buy cars that cost around $6,000. I very rarely, if ever, buy a car that's over $10,000, but $6,000 really is my sweet spot. And to be able to find a Toyota product that qualifies for Turo, so being a car that's a 2011 with 130,000 miles or less for that $6,000 price point, it's very difficult to find those. It's not impossible, they do exist, but it's similar to finding a needle in a haystack. And when you do find a car in that price point that's a Toyota, they typically are lacking in features. And more often than not, it's probably going to be a Toyota Yaris that you're buying. And for a base model Toyota Yaris, you're typically paying between $6,000 and $8,000, and the car is pretty bare bones and very rarely features things like Bluetooth, automatic locks, or automatic windows. My Toyotas are by far my most reliable cars in my fleet, and because of that, they're worth buying. But I have noticed that as my Toyota Yaris's have gotten older, the fact that they don't have Bluetooth, they have manual locks, manual windows, this becomes more of a downside, and as a result, people opt out of renting my more basic Yaris's because of these reasons. And this can become an issue depending on the price point that you bought your Yaris for. If you're paying $3,000 for a Toyota Yaris, it is perfectly fine that the car is extremely bare bones, and you'll be able to make really great ROI regardless. But if you're paying upwards of $8,000, $9,000, $10,000 for a Toyota Yaris that doesn't have more modern features, this can really hinder your growth on Turo because you simply won't make the daily trip price that you need in order to justify that purchase. My Toyota Yaris's in my fleet are not my best performers, but they're also not my worst, but they're extremely consistent. They're consistent from an ROI and revenue standpoint, they're consistent from a maintenance and repair standpoint, and I know exactly what they're going to be doing every month, month by month. But I would caution with how much you spend on these Yaris's, and I would try to find something in the $6,000 to $8,000 range. I would not recommend going as high as $10,000. An alternative to a Toyota Yaris that I've really fallen in love with over the years are Mazdas, specifically Mazda 2s, Mazda 3s, and I even recently added a Mazda 5 into my fleet just a couple of days ago. Mazda 2s are very similar to Toyota Yaris's in size and in appearance, and I have found that they offer a lot of what a Toyota Yaris doesn't. They definitely aren't as reliable as a Toyota Yaris, but they are significantly nicer in my opinion, and you can find them for a cheaper price. In fact, I would go as far as to say that I think Mazda 2s are probably my favorite type of car in my fleet at the moment. And Mazdas in general are one of those cars that if I find one for the right price, I would buy it every single day of the week. Mazdas are cheap, they're reliable, they have accessible parts, and they're easy to work on, and they cater to a wide variety of different types of customers. And you can find these cars for anywhere between $4,500 and $7,000. In fact, the Mazda 5 that I just purchased has 91,000 miles, it's one owner, and I just bought it for $6,000. I would say if I had one car to recommend to the general public to say this is a great car to purchase regardless of your financial situation, where you live, or your target customer, it would probably be a Mazda 2. I love these cars, they do extremely well, and overall I think they're great Turo cars, and you can buy them for an awesome price. Next up is SUVs, and what I am not talking about here are 3-row luxurious SUVs that cost anywhere between $75,000 and $100,000. I'm talking about older, more basic, economical SUVs like a Hyundai Tucson or a Ford Escape. I found that economical, affordable SUVs do extremely well because they cater to that type of person that's looking for a bigger car, but they don't necessarily have the budget to spend on a really nicer ride. I have a Ford Escape in my fleet that I've had for years. It has consistently been a top performer. I added a Hyundai Tucson to my fleet this past summer. It has done extremely well, and I recently added the Mazda 5, which isn't really an SUV, but it does cater to those larger groups of people. With these types of SUVs, you're catering to a really consistent, important group of Turo renters, people that are looking for a budget ride, but people that also need more space than a regular sedan. And with SUVs like this, I have found that not only can you make more money on a per daily trip rate, but I've also found that these cars get booked out for longer, resulting in more money as well. My biggest recommendation when it comes to these style SUVs is to be very cognizant of how much you're paying for that SUV compared to how much it can actually get rented out. For example, my 2008 Ford Escape that's been listed on Turo for years, it's a consistent top performer. We paid $4,500 for that car. The Hyundai Tucson that we bought this past summer is a 2011 and we bought it for about $8 grand. But if we were to buy something like a RAV4, which costs between $14,000 and $16,000, that car would make much less sense because the daily trip rate for a RAV4 is very similar to a Hyundai Tucson, despite the fact that the RAV4 is twice as expensive. I have found that the key to renting out these types of cars and to be very successful at it is to offer these cars at a very affordable rate to your guests. And in order to do that, you have to make sure to be very aware of how much you paid for that car. So I would try to find something in that $8,000 range, if not less. Next up is a Ford Focus, but there are some very important caveats here. Most Ford Focus model years are absolute garbage. Their transmission is horrible, they are unreliable, and they're just cars that I wouldn't recommend looking into. But there is one exception to this rule, and that is 2011 model years. You see, Ford Focuses that were pre-2011 were actually quite good. But in 2012, Ford not only changed the body style of this car, but they also changed the transmission. And as a result, between the years of 2011 and 2012, the Ford Focus became much less reliable. A 2011 Focus looks like this, while a 2012 Focus looks like this. I would keep an eye out and buy a car like this. I would completely avoid this one. 2007 to 2011 Ford Focuses are extremely solid, and the reason why I specify 2011 specifically for this video, because 2007 to 2010 no longer qualify for Turo. So if you want to buy a Ford Focus with this body style, you're going to have to go with the 2011. HP and I have owned a number of Ford Focuses over the years, and we currently have two. We have a 2007 and we have a 2011, and both of them perform extremely well. And from an ROI perspective, our 2011 Ford Focus is one of our best performers. Our 2011 Ford Focus is extremely basic, but it offers a lot of the creature comforts that people expect out of a more modern car, and because of that, the utilization of this car is absolutely insane. We bought this car for $5 grand back in March of this year, and it's consistently made between $1,200 and $1,500 every single month. In fact, over the course of 2022, it's paid for itself 2 times over. And from a return on investment standpoint, this car is one of our top performers. Ford Focuses are great because if you can find the right one at the right price, they can be extremely affordable and they really cater to an important audience on Turo, that person who's looking for a reliable, affordable car. Like I mentioned, I paid $5 grand for my Ford Focus and it's fully loaded for the year. It's a 2011, I bought it with less than 90,000 miles. It has leather seats, Bluetooth, sunroof, and even has ambient lighting. If you can find the right Ford Focus, it can absolutely be a home run that can make you a ton of money. But make sure to be mindful of which one you're buying, how much you're spending, what the service records and service history of that car are, and make sure that it doesn't fall under that same 2012 transmission that I was talking about earlier. Most Ford Focuses are not worth buying, but once you find the one that is, it can be a great purchase. But all in all, these are the cars that I recommend buying for under $10,000. Most, if not all of these cars can pretty easily be found for between $6,000 and $7,000. And if you really look hard, you could even find some of them for under $5,000. Like I mentioned, I just recently bought a Mazda 5 for $6 grand. Earlier this year, I bought a Ford Focus for $5,000. I recently bought a Hyundai Tucson for $8,000. So there are good deals out there. You just need to be patient and jump on them when you see them. But like always, you guys, I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you have any questions, comments, if you have anything to add, I would love to hear it. So make sure to leave a comment down below. And while you guys are at it, make sure to hit the like button, hit that subscribe button, and hit the notification bell. And I will see you guys in the next video.